Welcome back, Regretters, to another episode of Regretful Reads. This one's going to be fun. I had talked to the missus, and she was against reading a story about Garfield. So, we're going to read a story about Garfield. This story is entitled Love and Lasagna by Garfield's Sticky Cream. Oh boy. Let's get started. Garfield has loved lasagna ever since he was a kitten. There was almost always lasagna in the house, unless Odie or John ate some. He hated the days where he couldn't eat a large serving of lasagna. Today was one of those days. "John!" Garfield shouted. John emerged from another room. "What do you need?" John approached Garfield. Garfield pointed. "My lasagna. Where is it?" "What lasagna?" "My lasagna, John. Where is it?" Garfield shouted in anger. This had happened far too many times. "That 3-day-old lasagna?" John pointed at the sink. "I ate it. I didn't want it to go bad. I thought it was okay." Garfield slammed the refrigerator shut. "When has eating my lasagna ever been okay?" Garfield stepped closer to John, backing him up against the kitchen table. John began. Before he could finish, Garfield shushed him. "Shh, quiet, John. Nobody eats my lasagna and gets away with it." Garfield placed his paw under John's chin and tilted his head upward. John shivered. "Garfield," he whispered. Garfield couldn't handle it anymore. He smashed his feline lips against John's human ones. What? Garfield licked John's lips, and John slowly parted his lips, allowing Garfield's rough tongue to invade his mouth. The feeling made John let out a breathy moan. "How about we take this to the bedroom?" Garfield's husky voice made John's knees weak. Garfield growled and picked John up, carrying him to the bedroom. Garfield shoved John onto the bed, and John landed hard on his back. John watched with hooded eyes as Garfield slowly crept his way up to his face. Garfield grabbed John's wrists and held them above his head as he kissed John aggressively. John moaned into Garfield's mouth. Both were extremely horny, and Garfield planned on taking care of that. "I'm gonna fuck you so hard that you won't be able to sit right for a month," Garfield growled into John's ear as he rubbed his dick hard against John's clothed one. John whimpered in anticipation. "Garfield!" John's voice shook heavy with sexual desire. Garfield took that as him being told to strip John of his restricting clothing. Garfield tore John's clothing right off of him, discarding the strips of fabric on the floor. Immediately, Garfield took John's hard cock in his paw and brought his face to it. "I'm gonna blow your mind." Garfield placed his tongue at the base of his dick and slowly licked up to the head, maintaining eye contact with John the entire time. The feeling of Garfield's rough, feline tongue felt euphoric upon the sensitive skin. "Oh, Garfield!" John shouted, gripping the bed sheets. Garfield repeated the action a few times before stopping. He didn't want John to come just yet. "Get on your hands and knees," Garfield demanded. John moved to his hands and knees, shaking in anticipation. He wanted Garfield's large cock inside of him. Garfield leaned over John's back, letting his dick rub against John's quivering asshole. Garfield whispered low in John's ear. "Are you ready to take my whole cock?" John simply nodded in response. "I'm gonna make you my cum bucket." Garfield then shoved his gargantuan cock into John's ass as hard as he could. Garfield groaned in pleasure. John was so tight. So fucking tight. Ah! John yelped. That hurts! You'll adjust. Garfield spoke as he slowly began to move. As much as he wanted to fuck John into oblivion, he wanted to make sure he was safe first. After about 5 minutes of slow thrusting, John finally began to moan. Garfield then began to move faster, harder, more aggressive than before. Soon, he was pounding into John. This is what happens when you eat my lasagna, John. Garfield slaps John's ass. The thick flesh rippled beneath Garfield's paw. You get punished. Garfield emphasized each word with a hard thrust. John's arms collapsed, and he was now moaning loud into his pillows. Garfield! John shouted. It feels so good, I'm gonna come! Oh, neighbors, neighbors, neighbors. Garfield simply responded by pounding harder and faster. His claws began to dig into John's plump ass, drawing small amounts of blood. Come, Garfield demanded. He reached his paw around John's torso to grab onto his dick and jerk him off in the time with his thrusts. Soon enough, John was coming all over his bed sheets. John collapsed on the bed, and Garfield pulled out. Garfield was not finished. Garfield, that was so good. John turned over to face Garfield. I'm not finished, John. Garfield was hovering over John, swiftly jerking off. Put your mouth on my huge cock. Suck me off, John. John shivered at the sound of his name being spoken in such a manner. He slowly wrapped his mouth around Garfield's dick. It was so big that it could barely fit into his mouth. The feeling of John's hot mouth was too much for Garfield. With a loud yowl, Garfield came down John's throat. I love you, Garfield. John spoke quietly, pulling away from Garfield. I love you too, John. Don't ever eat my lasagna again. The end!